What's going on, everybody? So, if you want to understand how student loans work and learn how they can help you pay for college or trade school, then this is the video for you. Your education can be a very big investment, and before making that investment, it's good to educate and get educated. So, if you're someone who's already borrowed money and you want to understand better how the system works, or if you're someone who's thinking about borrowing money, we're going to dive into the details in this video and going to do it in a simple and concise way so that you understand how these things work and can use them to your advantage in your own situations. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the video. School costs money. So if you're going to go to a four-year university or grad school or a trade school, no matter what, it's going to cost a few thousand to tens of thousands of dollars per year, sometimes per semester. So between the different expenses that you have the tuition, which is the cost of the course. Then you have housing if you're going to live on campus, which could be several $1,000s a semester. You have a meal plan. You have other fees. So you have all these different fees that you have that are going to end up on your bill at the beginning of the semester. And student loans are a tool to help you get those bills paid. So here we have a pretty standard bill that I found on the internet, and it's from Messiah University, and it's looking like the spring of 2021. So all these charges on here are pretty standard, and you can expect to see something very similar on your bill whenever you enroll in college, or if you're already enrolled, then this will look familiar. We have the tuition, which is $18,000 at this school. And I think this is a private school, so a lot of times their tuition is a lot more. If you're going to a big school like Penn State or like Georgia or Texas A&M, they can have pretty hefty tuitions, but there are schools that are a lot more affordable where you'll see $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 per semester. Then we have the dining plan, which is $2,500. So that's a pretty standard, I would say. You're going to be paying anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000, $4,000, depending on how good your dining plan is and where you're going to school. So that's pretty standard. You have a student services fee, and a lot of time you have that kind of fee or a technology fee or student events fee. And you'll see fees for a couple $100s that are going to add on to your bill. We also have the large triple room. So that's your room and board is what they like to call that. So just your living accommodations. The $2,300 a semester, that's kind of low, I think. I think nowadays in most places you'll see closer to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per semester. So it's not cheap. A lot of people will live off campus, so you're not living in the dorms, and you'll just have to find a landlord. And a lot of times that can be cheaper than living on the in-campus or in the on-campus housing. We have the nursing clinicals fee. So this looks like this is from a nurse, so she has to pay for her clinical experience. And then there we see that student activity fee down at the bottom. So looking down at the bottom half of this bill for the semester, we have those line items that start with the asterisks, and those are not expenses, but those are the payments and credits that we have for the semester. So the money that we have to pay towards our expenses. And looking at that first one, we have the Federal Direct Subsidized Stafford Loan. And underneath that, we have the Federal Direct Unsubsidized Stafford Loan. So if you've already taken out student loans, these words or the names of those loans are probably pretty familiar to you, or you've at least seen them and wondered what they are. We'll talk about that in more detail here shortly. In that third line, we have the Income Share Agreement. Not really sure what that means. We have the Provost Scholarship underneath that. So scholarships are merit-based. So they probably have good grades or some kind of qualifying activity that made them eligible for that scholarship. We have a nursing student loan. So it doesn't say anything about being a federal loan. So it might be from the university. Then we have the FIA grant. So grants are not merit-based, so you don't really earn them, but they're need-based. So that's just free money. You don't have to pay that back. You don't have to pay back scholarships either. Then we have the Nursing Endowed Scholarship Fund. So again, merit-based. They earned a nursing scholarship. And then we have a Messiah College Grant. So again, more free money. So the balance due at the end is negative $295. So that will likely be reimbursed to them in a refund check, and more videos on refund checks to come. But if you have more payments and credits than charges at the end of the semester, then you get a refund check, and they'll usually just give that to you either in a check or a direct deposit. But this video is not about refund checks or scholarships or grants, so we'll move on to talking about how those loans work. So federal student loans are the loans that people are typically talking about when they're talking about student loans and student loan debt. Those are the loans that everybody has access to if you're a U.S. citizen and select non-citizens, and they're the easiest to get and the ones that people usually start out with. So you hear about the subsidized and the unsubsidized loans, and those can seem like daunting or scary words, but the only difference between those two are that the unsubsidized loans accrue interest while you're in school. So while you're in school, those balances are getting bigger, interest is growing on those balances. And with the subsidized loans, which are income-based or need-based, those loans don't accrue interest while you're in school. So they're just better. You don't get as much money in subsidized loans as you would for unsubsidized loans, and you have to qualify for them. But they're a little bit better. They're need-based, so not everybody has access to those. So here we have a chart of the annual loan limit that students have to borrow in federal student loans. And this is split up between dependent students and independent students. So if you live with your parents and they're still contributing substantially to your living situation, then you're going to be a dependent, or really if they claim you on your taxes. And then you have your independent students. So those are the people who are living on their own, maybe older, and don't have anyone claiming them as a dependent on their taxes. So as you can see over on the left, the aggregate loan limit for the year changes based on what year you are. So if it's your first year, you can borrow $5,500. If it's your third year and beyond, $7,500 for dependent student. Independent students, so these are for you guys or guys and gals who may be borrowing money and starting school late as an adult, or you're just living on your own. It's going to be $9,500 for that first year you have access to in federal student loans, going down to $12,500 on your third year and beyond. For graduate students, it's $20,500 in unsubsidized loans. So if you can find a grad program or master's or whatever that's under $20,500 per year, that can be subsidized completely with student loans, or paid for completely with student loans. So the FAFSA is the application that you fill out every year before the school year starts that determines how much money that you're eligible for in federal student loans. So that'll determine whether or not that you are eligible for the subsidized loans, or if you're only going to be eligible for the unsubsidized loans. And also that will determine whether or not you'll be able to borrow up to that maximum amount of federal loans for the year. Private student loans are also an option that people use in order to pay for their school. So lots of times, if the federal student loans don't cover the full bill or the cost of attendance, they'll use private student loans as an option to help get the school paid for the year. There are lenders like Sallie Mae, like SoFi, Citizens Bank. Really, any bank that's in the business of giving out loans probably has some kind of private student loan arrangement. Private loans can be a little more stringent at times with their terms. For example, if you borrow money for an undergrad program and you finish the program, and whenever it's agreed upon for you to start making those payments, that's when the payments are going to start, and they're not going to stop. As for with federal student loans, a lot of times there's flexibility. So if you were to start a master's program or a doctoral program, then you can defer those student loan payments. So there are rules within the federal student loan program that don't apply in the private world. So one thing I didn't mention in our overview is the Parent Plus loan, which is a very powerful and useful loan. So what it does is it covers the rest of the cost of attendance of your school year. So let's say you borrow $5,000, or you're eligible for $5,000 in unsubsidized loans for the school year. The Parent Plus loan could cover the rest of the $15,000 if your bill was $20,000. The condition is that they'll run a credit check. So they're going to check your parents' credit history, and they're going to check their income for their ability to repay. So they don't take that into account as much whenever they're determining whether or not you qualify for federal student loans in the first place. But whenever you apply for the Parent Plus loan, they are going to check your parents' credit. So if your parents don't have great credit, or you don't have parents, then it can be harder to get access to that loan. So hopefully you have a better understanding for how student loans work. I went over the main types of student loans that you're going to encounter if you're borrowing money to pay for your education or have already borrowed money to pay for your education. We have our federal student loans, which are split into our subsidized and unsubsidized loan based on your need. Then we have the Parent Plus loan, which will cover the rest of the cost of attendance, but your parents are going to be subject to a credit check. You also have your private loans, which again, subject to a credit check, but can be another useful tool in getting your education paid for. And that's pretty much it. If there are still some things that aren't clear to you, or you have any questions about student loans or your specific situation, go ahead and drop those in the comment section and I'll make sure to get back to you. You could also subscribe to the channel to follow for more information about student loans and getting your school paid for, with scholarships and grants. We still haven't talked much about the refund check, and that's a big topic. Lots of people in college want to know how to utilize that to their advantage, and I utilized it to my advantage in my personal journey. So yeah, that's going to be it. Thanks for sticking along till the end, and I'll catch you guys next time.